bring it up to Prophet Muhammad and his reform movement. Prophet Muhammad did not originate Islam. Prophet Muhammad reformed Islam. His was a reform movement and, in a sense, a revolution in Arabia. He sanitized an ancient system. He didn't originate it, but we want to be clear of the actors. See, Dr. Chancellor Williams, in his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, says, for the Arabs themselves are a white people, the Semitic division of Caucasians. This quote is in his first edition, published in 1974. I know Dr. Chancellor Williams, but Dr. Chancellor Williams is wrong. Ibn Manzur tells us that the Arabic term, Aswadul Jud, Ibn Manzur is the most important Arabic lexicon. You want to know what an Arabic term or phrase means? You first have to consult Ibn Manzur. He tells us that the term Aswadul Jilda, black skin, means Halis ul Arab, pure Arab. In other words, the purity of Arabism is denoted by blackness of skin. The pure Arab, he says, describes their color as black, al-aswad, and the color of the non-Arab as red. Whiteness denoted the non-Arab. Blackness of skin denoted the pure Arab, because the pure Arab is a descendant of those original Africans in Arabia. Al-Mubarak, 9th century grammarian. The Arabs used to take pride in their darkness and blackness, and they had a distaste for a light complexion. And they used to say that a light complexion was the complexion of the non-Arabs. These black Arabs glorified in their blackness and had a distaste for white complexion because it was foreign to Arabia. And Al-Jahiz tells us the Arabs pride themselves in their black color. The Arabs at the time of Prophet Muhammad, the pure Arabs, were denoted by their black complexion. And non-Arabs were noted for being white, but they weren't called white. They were called red. Red denoted white skin in ancient Arabic tradition. White, abyad, denoted luminosity, not chromaticity. The hadith says Muhammad is a white man. That means he has a luminous complexion. The hadith also said his color was dark brown. If you want to say Muhammad is a white-skinned man, you call him red, humble. But it's not said that he is red. It's said that he is dark brown and he is a Raju Abyad, a white man, meaning a man with a black complexion that glows. The mistake that is made is imposing 21st century American color connotation to 9th century Semitic texts. And then you want to be dogmatic about it. I put the information out there, showed the Arabic, but some of these people still want to get on YouTube and argue, knowing you don't have access to the necessary primary source. On what basis are you arguing? Your dogmatism. Briefly, the most important tribes at the time of Prophet Muhammad that were active in this drama, if you will, called Muhammad's Islam. They were black Arabs. His tribe, the Banu Quraysh, the most important tribe, were the quintessential black Arabs. The Quraysh were noted for their blackness. They were the paramount black tribe of Arabia. In Islamic history, we learned that Prophet Muhammad originated in Mecca, but at a time was forced to flee to Medina. And over in Medina, he was embraced by some Medinese Arabs who helped him, the Ansar. So the two most important groups in the drama that was Islam are the immigrants, those who immigrated from Mecca to Medina, and those in Medina that received and helped him, the Ansar. Both of those groups were black. The Meccans were from the Banu Quraysh, the black tribe. The Medinese were from the Banu Hazraj and Aus, a southern tribe that had relocated to Medina. They were jet black Arabian tribes. So the two most important groups in the history of Islam during and post-Muhammad. The immigrants and the helpers were black Arabians. The actors in this early drama were black. We didn't get to the white Arabs yet. And so this is important. I want to say, well, the Arabs did this. What Arabs are you talking about? You have to make the distinction. This laziness, not on my watch. I'm going to force you to be more specific. I'm talking generalities. That's not helping anybody. What Arabs? On what basis do you call them Arabs? And on what basis do you disqualify them as African? These, the Banu Quraysh and the Banu Hazraj and the Banu Aus, are black Arabians. Now, I spoke on this. Well, I'm going to touch on it briefly. I spoke on the issue of Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad was known as the Arab of Arabs, the Qurayshi Arab. But the Qurayshi Arabs were black. I got 11 pages in my book discussing this issue of Prophet Muhammad's ethnicity. It's on YouTube. I spoke about it at the debate. I spoke about it when I was here in Harlem last time, so I'm not going to repeat all of that. Get the DVDs and get the book. But I do want to say this. Wayne Chandler, in African Presence in Early Asia, notes correctly, a careful examination of history reveals that the Prophet Muhammad was of the black race and was black in complexion. Dr. Ben says Muhammad was in the family of the black race. J.A. Rogers says Muhammad himself was, to all accounts, a Negro. Some of you want to dispute the Arabic as if you can. You got to be able to engage the Arabic to dispute it, but because some of us want Islam to be white, to justify rejecting it, we want to insist on Muhammad being non-African. But here are your scholars. Are you saying Dr. Ben is wrong when he says Muhammad was in the family of the black race? Are you saying J.A. Rogers was wrong when he said Muhammad, by all accounts, was a Negro? Are you saying Wayne Chandler? You could say I'm wrong. Are you saying these scholars are wrong? They confirm what the Arabic material gives us. Muhammad was a Qurayshi Arab, described as dark brown. Now, this is a 14th century Christian icon depicting the Crusades. In particular, this image depicts Richard the Lionheart fighting Saladin. This is Crusader iconography. Now, this is supposed to be Richard the Lionheart. And this is supposed to be Saladin, depicted as a demonic Ethiopian. I'm not going to discuss whether Saladin was black or not. What I want to draw your attention to is Saladin's shield. There's a head of a black man on Saladin's shield. According to the Christians, according to the Crusaders, do with it what you will. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, but this is their depiction. According to the Crusaders, the Muslims that they fought would march in battle with images of Prophet Muhammad on their standards. And this is a Christian depiction, a Crusader depiction of the Muslims they fought and the standard with Muhammad on it. So for some reason, the Crusaders believed that the Muslims they fought honored a black Muhammad. Now I was going to talk about this bogus claim that Prophet Muhammad didn't exist, or Walter Williams. I want to speed through I want to keep you forever. Islamic history must be divided up. Beloved, we cannot put 1,400 years of history in a single bag. Not if we are going to be responsible historians. Islamic history must be divided up into periods. And for our purpose, ethnographic periods. There's what I call, and it's necessary to do this in order to understand the transition from black to white. Phase one I call the pre-Quranic Islam, the Islam before the revelation of the Quran. The Islam of those ancient pre-Muhammad blacks. Pre-Muhammad blacks. That Islam was a black Islam, meaning it was practiced by black folks in the race. The phase two, the period of Muhammad and the four rightly guided caliphs, who were black. Muhammad and the caliphs, Qurayshi, Arabs. Phase three, the first dynasty of Islam, the Umayyad Dynasty. I'm going to have a lot to say in a moment. There's a black dynasty, the quintessential black dynasty. I'm going to talk about them in a moment. The quintessential black power dynasty. Black power at its finest. Then phase four, the Abbasid dynasty. The second dynasty of Islam that came on the heels of a revolution in 750. It overthrew the Umayyads, where the Abbasid family was a black Arab family. The revolution was largely a revolution of Persians, what we now call Iranians. And this is critical. Iranians are not Arabs. Iranians are not Semitic peoples. Iranians, Persians are Aryan peoples. Their language, Persian, is not a Semitic language. It's an Indo-European language. The Aryans, or the Iranians or Persians, prided themselves on being the whitest and most hook-nosed. Their term. They prided themselves on being the whitest and most hook-nosed of whites. This is critical. And see, we show our ignorance when we put depiction of Iranians. Talk about, see what the Arabs did? Iranians, Persians are Indo-Aryan peoples. They are the descendants of those Indo-Aryans that entered the Indus Valley and perpetuated the black Holocaust among the black folks of the Indus Valley, in which they joyed in flaying the black skin of the black folks in the Indus Valley, and they put in their sacred literature that they flayed the black skin of the dreaded black gods. The Persians are the direct descendants of that Indo-Aryan group. That is critical to understand, because it was the Persians that were the engine behind the Abbasid revolution that decimated the Umayyads, the Black Dynasty, and this ushered in a completely different Islamic sentiment. It ushered in a completely different racial ethic, because the Iranians, the Persians at that time, were very hateful of black people. And so the revolution that occurred with the Abbasids was not just a political revolution. It was a cultural, psychological, and religious revolution. Islam went from pro-black to anti-black at the hands of the Persians. And so why this is important, the anti-black imagery that some of you like to get on the internet, pull up on the internet, and say, see, Islam hate black folk. You pull up some hadith report about blacks being called raisin heads. You pull up some hadith report, or you pull up some 13th century Persian scholar talking about blacks are the sons of Ham, and see, you say, see, Islam is anti-black. No. That anti-black sentiment that permeated so much of the later literature was introduced by the Persians. And so you have, for example, the early description of Prophet Muhammad is that he is dark brown, asthma, or black. That's 9th century. But by the 13th century, you have the dictum that anyone found in Muslim literature, that anyone who says Muhammad is black should be killed. That is the distance that was traveled. But let me document that. Muawiyah is the first caliph of the Umayyad Dynasty. He was a black Qurayshi Arab. He said, he's talking about these non-Arab whites in his kingdom. And Muawiyah, the black caliph, says, I see that these white, he didn't too much care for white folks. Because black Arabs at the time detested white complexion. I'm sorry, they had it, well, I'm not going to say, I'm going to say had a little Elijah in them, but Elijah didn't detest them for what they are. But maybe Muawiyah has some knowledge of who they are. He said, I see that these white folks, red, literally reds. He said, I see that these white folks have become very numerous and are saying bad things about those who have passed. He said, I can envision a daring enterprise from them against the authority of the Arabs. These white folks, he suspected, were collaborating and were going to come against the Black Dynasty, conspire. He said, I am thinking of killing half of them and leaving half of them to set up markets and to build roads. Kill half and slay the other. That's Muawiyah, the first caliph for the Black Dynasty, the Umayyads. Now look what happens. The 9th century poet, Ibn Rumi, he wrote a poem, a famous poem. He lived during a time after the Abbasid revolution, after a lot of the Persian sentiment, anti-black sentiment, had set in, and after the caliphs themselves became whiter through mixing with Byzantine slave girls. The complexion of the caliphs themselves changed, and the sentiment changed. And Ibn al-Rumi writes this poem criticizing the Abbasids. And this is what he says. Shows you the distance that was traveled. He says, you insulted them, talking to the Abbasid caliph. So you insulted them, the family of Prophet Muhammad, because of their blackness. See, not only Prophet Muhammad, you can't make him white. All of his family, his 10 uncles were jet black. His cousins were jet black. His mother was from Banu Zuhra, a black tribe. You just can't do it. You can't make him other than what he is. Though the enemies are adverse. He said, you insulted them, the family of Prophet Muhammad, because of their blackness, while there are still pure-blooded, black-skinned Arabs. He's talking to the Abbasid caliph. He's chastising him because he ill-treats the family of Muhammad, the Sharifs, because they're black. And he says, there are still pure-blooded black Arabs among us. He said, however, you, Abbasids, you are blue-eyed. The Romans and Byzantines have embellished your faces with their color. Mixing with these Byzantine slave girls have made the Abbasid caliphs white. And the Persian influence made them hateful of the blackness, even the blackness of Prophet Muhammad and his family. This demonstrates the distance traveled between the Umayyads, who were black and pro-black, through the Abbasids that became anti-black. Now, it's the black Umayyads that are important, because it is the Umayyads, it is under the Umayyads that the huge empire of Islam were established. The Muslim conquests established up through the time of the Umayyads, established the great empire and civilization of Islam. This was during black Islam, under the black Umayyads. Now, some of you want me to apologize for the Muslim conquest. Want me to be all sensitive. Want me to renounce a Muslim conquest. I beg your pardon. I've never heard of such. The Muslim conquests were the greatest display of black power since the time Hannibal defeated Rome.
You say so.
I make no apologies for the Muslim conquest. This is the empire. This is the empire that was established. Let's be clear. It was black soldiers who were the Muslim armies under the leadership of black generals. This wasn't a white Arab conquest. So yeah, did the conquest involve some black on black conflict? Yeah, it did. You know. Hannibal didn't only fight white folks. Shaka Zulu didn't only fight white folks. In the history of imperialism, of empire, in Africa, there's black on black conflict. And I demonstrated that with Kemet. But I'm gonna talk about Kemet's imperialism and explain to you why I make no apologies for black Muslim imperialism. And if you talk about black power, don't ask me to apologize for the greatest display of black power. Let's be clear, the armies responsible for the Muslim conquest, they were described in the Far East in Chinese records and in the Far West in Iberian or Spanish records. And in both cases, from the extreme east to extreme west, the soldiers, the conquerors, were described as black. The Arab, from the Chinese source, the Arab men have high noses and are black and bearded. The Song of Roland, written in the 11th century, Roland was a champion of Charlemagne's Frankish army, who fought the Moors in the 8th century and was defeated. Roland described the black Arab Muslims that he, or the Muslims that he fought, the Arab Muslims that he fought, as black as melted pitch, boards blacker than the blackest ink, no shred of white on them except their teeth. These were the black Muslim conquerors. And 14th century depiction of Romans fight with those black Muslim armies. Here is Roland, white, in his black arms. The Muslims whom he fought were black. Those conquerors were black conquerors. They weren't white Arabs conquering the black world. Now, this is critical. At the time of the conquest, the world was under the rulership of a white power structure. That white power structure had two pillars. One pillar based in the Byzantine Empire. The other pillar based in Persia, the Sasanian Empire, who was Zoroastrians, who were Persians. And the Byzantines and the Sasanians, the Romans and the Persians had ruled the world for 600 years. They ruled North Africa. They ruled Northern and Eastern Arabia. They ruled Europe. They ruled Persia. It was the Muslims who toppled the Byzantine and Sasanian Empire, decimating the white power structure. Persia was brought down by a black Arab, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, described as tall and black, Muhammad's uncle. He is responsible for decimating the Persian Empire. And Persian Iranian nationalists today loathe Sa'd because they accuse him rightfully of destroying Sasanian civilization. He was a black Muslim that toppled the white power structure based in Persia, or the pillar of the white power structure based in Persia. Syria was taken by Abu Lawal ibn Sufyan. But more importantly, the Syrian expeditions that overthrew the Byzantine was led by a very important man. The first, Saifullah, the sword of Allah, Khalid ibn al-Walid. Khalid ibn al-Walid, after whom our brother, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad was named, was a black Muslim. You know how he got his name, Saifullahi? Because he killed upwards of 70,000 Persians in one expedition. It was after that that he was called the sword of Allah. This was a black Muslim. So you who cling to Khalid, or would dare diss Islam, and would dare ask me to apologize for the Muslim conquest because you say these were some white Arabs who brought death and destruction, mayhem, to Africa. Well, you need to call Brother Harold. Because every time you call him Khalid, and call him the sword of Allah, you are honoring the black Muslim warrior after whom he was named. So if you have a problem with the black Muslim conquest, you got a problem with Khalid Abdul Muhammad. You can't have it both ways. Khalid was appropriately named. He was a black Muslim warrior, and his namesake, Khalid ibn al-Walid, was a black Muslim warrior, which is why I am profoundly humbled by the Saiful Islam Award, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad Award that you honored me with. I only pray, though I'm sure I can only fail in trying to live up to not just the legacy of Khalid Abdul Muhammad, but Khalid ibn al-Walid. I embrace both. You can try to pick and choose if you want, but I'm gonna call out your hypocrisy. You either take them both or you leave them both alone. The invasion into Egypt was a black operation from top to bottom, initiated by the black caliph Umar. Not just the caliph who called it, but the captains. Amr ibn al-As and the lieutenants were all black. Muhammad ibn Maslama, Ubadah ibn Samit, and the troops that went into Egypt, and overthrew the Byzantines that had oppressed the Coptic church. They overthrew and ran the Byzantines out. And what did the Copts do? Were the Copts mad? Were the Copts saying, who are these white folk trying to replace these other white folks and ruling us? No. The African Copts no doubt saw the African Muslims from Arabia as liberators. After all, they were kith and kin. The African Copts on many occasions assisted the African Muslims in overthrowing the Byzantines and the African Muslims. The Roman Christians who are in Kemet, when the African Muslims established themselves in Egypt, they took the churches from the Chaldean Christians, the white Christians, and turned them over to the Copts. And while the black Muslims were in power in Egypt, the Coptic church flourished. See, some of us perpetuate the myth that the Muslims who conquered Egypt abused the Copts, imposed Islam on the Copts. That is a myth, a Christian missionary myth that has no foundation in truth. I'm going to get to that in a minute. The Coptic church flourished under the black Muslims, and the Chaldean church, the white church, suffered. Their churches were taken from them and given to the Copts. Now, again, this is the empire under the Umayyads. This is the empire at Kemet's height of imperialism. Kemet was imperialist. Middle Kingdom and New Kingdom, Kemet was imperialist. But this is, and at the height of its empire, it had as a colony Nubia, all the way into close to the Fifth Cataract, deep into Nubia. Black Nubia, black Kemet colonizing black Nubia. I know some of you want to be in denial. It is what it is.
That's right.
It's black on black imperial conflict. It's a history of empire. Kemet went, the farthest its extent was into black Syria. Oh, gosh. Now this is the Kemetic Empire at its height. That's black power. Why is that black power? And this is a much greater empire. Now, I accept both. Let's be clear. I recognize the value of Kemet. I don't make these comparisons to say, leave Kemet alone. I make these comparisons to expose some hypocrisy. We can embrace Kemetic imperialism. We can be proud of Kemetic power, but then you want me to reject this power. No, this is black power at its finest. There hasn't been a black empire that extended that great on the world scene. And all of this was done when Islam was black during the Umayyad period. So I say yes, the Muslim conquests were the greatest display of black power since Hannibal's defeat of Rome. Yes, I make no apologies to it. You want me to repudiate the Muslim conquest? Then you repudiate all of Kemet's excursions into Nubia, into the eastern desert, into Syria. And if you do that, you're still not getting me to repudiate the black power. Because I'm real when I say black power. You may be playing with it, I'm not.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to wrap up here, take question and answer. But I want to end on this note. See, the Diop makes the point, except for the Islamic breakthrough, Europe has ruled Africa down to the present day. It was that Islamic breakthrough, that black Islamic breakthrough that cut Europe's authority over Africa. Now, but I have to say this, Islam didn't stay black in Africa. Nubia did fall into troubles with Muslim Egypt when the Turks took over in Kemet. After the Abbasid Revolution, the Abbasids were destroyed in 1258. From that point on, Islam was Turkish, was white. The Seljuks and then the Ottomans. From that point on, all of Islamic history is white history. And that's when slavery on a grand scale was undertaken. Before that time, there was slavery, but most of the slaves were white. I got the documentation. It's in my book. I got it here, but I'm not going to go through all of the slides. For 1,000 years nearly, most of the slaves were white. It was in the 14th century that the slave demographic began to change under the Turks and more primarily the Ottomans. The Ottomans, these white Turks, started focusing on black slaves in Nubia. When Muslim Egypt was still black, the Nubian church flourished. But then the Turks took over, the Mamluks in Egypt. And then the Fatimids, and the game changed. The whites played out their racist aggression against Nubia. They started taking slaves. But it's important that we distinguish the periods of Islam, the first 100 years. Black Islam and black Nubia were friendly. It was when the Black Dynasty of Islam was overthrown. A new ethic was introduced. Islam was Aryanized. So in as much as you would encourage me to not judge Egyptian history on the basis of the Ptolemies, that ruled Kemet in the latter stages was white folks. You would tell me to recognize Kemet's early blackness and recognize that the greatness of Kemet was carried through by the black Commissions? I submit to you that when you talk about Islam, you are right to bang on what Turks and Persians and others did in the name of Islam. They're racism. But don't try to sell me the lie that Islam is a white Arab religion, because you find some documents about white Muslims mistreating black folks. I got documents about black and white Egyptians mistreating black folks. You want me to throw Kemet out? Want me to throw the baby out with the bathwater? Don't ask me to. Recognize Islam is an African religion. It was created by African peoples, Africans in Arabia. It was spread by African peoples in Arabia. It was hijacked by non-Arabs. And it was, in some cases, weaponized against black. And we should call that out, we should condemn it, but not emotionally. Fairly, critically. Dr. Ben called for a re-Africanizing of these Western religions. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad re-Africanized Islam. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad turned us back to Islam when it was black, and then gave us greater insight, a greater layer, a greater understanding of that black Islam. Thus, in all of this, that conquest that toppled the white power structure is why whites know the threat that black Islam poses to white power. This isn't theory, this is historical fact. It was black Muslims, it was black Islam that toppled white supremacy the first time, and it was black Islam, they knew when they heard the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it would be black Islam that topples white supremacy the second time.